You're about to make a trade. Which you do you listen to? Is it get optioning those options? Or let's do a little research. Learn more at finra.org/trade-smart.
This book in particular is the sixth book in a series. At this point, our protagonist, whose name is Clay Edison, and over the course of that series, he transitions out of being a law enforcement officer. He's established himself as a private investigator who has a very sort of interesting and collaborative relationship with another private investigator who lives down in Santa Cruz. And this book opens with her bringing him a case that she can't handle. She sort of punts to him.
Coyote Hills is an exciting book. Agatha Christie's, a huge success. She created a great puzzle, but her characters did not evolve. We want to write real characters who change over time. It's a novel like any other novel based on character, but the catalyst is a crime. It is so full of twists and turns and surprises literally to the last page.
What's up, everybody? I have Jonathan and Jesse Kellerman here, a father-son duo that has published over 7 to 10 books together, like literally together. They're New York Times bestsellers, and they have this amazing book, a psychological thriller coming out in late October called Coyote Hills. Welcome to the show, guys.
It's great to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys are, we got to, chop it up a little bit before we hit record and before the show started. So I'm just really excited about this conversation because one of the things that we touched on was the fact that you guys get to do so many of these things together. It's a great bonding experience. And I'm looking at your guys' relationship in real time and how you guys edify each other. And I can just hope and pray that when my children get older, we can have a side-by-side conversation and them feel the same about me and me about them. So, kudos to you guys.
I just turned 76 years old, and I don't like to introspect because I think introspection is the enemy of creativity. But you do look back, and I said, I've written a lot of books, but the thing I'm most proud about are my children. And all 4 of them have turned out real. They still seem to like me, or at least they're faking it. And I love the people that they married. So I joke that my in-law kids are my favorite kids because they call me dad and treat me nice. I didn't pay their tuition or go through their adolescence. So it's much more important to me to have collaborated with my beautiful wife to create these 4 amazing human beings. I couldn't be prouder of my children. They're really all gems.
Amazing.
And they're highly accomplished, all of them, happily married and prolific in producing other children, so, especially
especially this guy right here, 5 kids. Good Lord.
And he works hard at it.
I think. Well, yeah, I think my dad and I, when my dad and I started working together, we both realized that the relationship is much more important than the collaboration. The relationship preceded the collaboration. It will continue after the collaboration ends, assuming it ever does. And who knows? Maybe we'll be doing these things for the rest of our natural lives. But I think that level of trust and mutual respect, both as people and as craftspeople, is what has enabled us to be so productive together.
Well, you never know what it's going to be like until you do it. And we kind of fell into it, as I say, because I had started a book and I was writing another book. I have a series that I write. I did a non-series book and I did about 100 pages of it. And it was just too much. And it was too much. And Jesse happened to be visiting with his family and he saw this pile of papers on my desk. He said, what's that? I said, it's a book I started, but I don't think I'm going to finish it. And then he picked it up. He said, this is really good. We should finish it. I said, okay, we'll finish it together. So it was a bestseller and it was a great book. And we had so much fun. We decided to do another one and that was fun. So we kept going and it's been a wonderful experience. First of all, I liken it to playing in a band. I've been playing guitar most of my life and I've done a lot of different types of music and I played semi-pro and it really makes a difference. I'm sure in sports, it's the same way. You want your teammates to know what they're doing. It really makes a big difference. when you play with people who know how to play, it just goes better for you. Same thing with writing. Jesse was already a highly accomplished writer. When he was right out of college, he won the Princess Grace Award for Best Young Playwright in America. And he had his own bestsellers. So he was highly accomplished. So it wasn't a nepotism thing. It wasn't a Nepo baby. This guy was accomplished. You know, he got into Harvard Law School, didn't go, and he had his own deals. And so it's been fun. And I never understood these people who, like, there was a British novelist, Kingsley Amis, very successful. His son was Martin Amis, more successful. And they asked Kingsley, what do you think of Martin? He goes, oh, is he the skinny one? You know, he just was competitive and scornful. And I don't understand that at all. You love your children. You're not going to compete with them. And but fortunately, Jesse has a lot of talent. So we enjoy writing together. It makes it a fun process. And I can honestly say, in all these books, honestly, we've never had an unpleasant syllable between us.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing because he was a teenager and gave me quite a bit of grief at times, but he's a grown man now. He's mature and he was a great kid. I'm not saying we had major issues, but he's not a saint. He went through adolescence. All my kids did. It's part of life. But as a writer, he's fabulous. I mean, it's just great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What's your take on all that, Jesse?
Well, I think that, I think one important thing to understand about me is that I come from a theater background. That was sort of where I was for many, many years. I was doing playwriting. I was directing, and that really primed me to be able to collaborate and work together with somebody creatively without your ego getting in the way. Not writing novels is generally a one-person operation. You're the director, the scenic designer. You're the actor. You're putting the words in people's mouth. So I think for a lot of novelists, it's very hard to let go of that level of control. Whereas for me, since I cut my teeth writing plays, I was very comfortable with the idea that what I do is part of something larger. A script is a blueprint. It's not the finished product. And I was also comfortable and excited with the idea of coming to somebody and having that rapport and bouncing things off somebody. Like I love to sit around and shoot the breeze with my friends. And this is in some ways no different from that. It's sitting in a room or a virtual room with somebody, and it's the yes and it's the yes and of improv. Okay, what about this? Oh, what about this? And that state of sort of creative permissiveness and freedom that allows you to build a total that's much greater than the sum of its parts. Don't get me wrong. I love to write my own books, and I still work on my solo projects. But in addition to my dad, I also collaborate with other people, just because like that dynamic is super fun for me. I wrote a collaborative comic book with a friend last year. We're developing it for television. So there's a lot of fun and also comfort in being able to go to your partner, assuming you trust them, as my dad said, and that they're skilled, and you don't feel like you're dragging dead weight. And we've all had that experience too, like on group projects where you're dragging people behind you. So the important thing is pick your partners carefully. Pick your partners carefully. Same thing in marriage. You'll be fine.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our Powered By sponsor. We're proud to announce a partnership between White Sands Treatment Centers and the Determined Society. With multiple locations across Florida, White Sands provides luxury, top-rated addiction treatment, from medical detox and inpatient care to outpatient support and long-term aftercare. Their resort-style campuses, expert clinicians, and holistic programs create real, lasting recovery. Together, we're committed to bringing hope, resources, and healing to those who need it most. White Sands Treatment Centers.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. The thing that I love everything that you guys said, but the one thing that sticks out to me is most great things come out of things that are unexpected, right?
True, for sure.
That you're not
100%.
That you're not forcing. And Doc, you had a book that you were trying to write, and you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to finish it. Jesse picks it up and is like, hey, let's this is great. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
And then that partnership and collaboration in the professional world developed. And from that point, you guys have done amazing things together.
Yeah.
Is just for the listeners to really think about, right? We cannot judge every single moment as it's going to be the end all be all. We have to be open to the fact that things can develop and can evolve into something completely different than we had envisioned. And what can be born? An amazing run of amazing books and collaboration.
I think that's really an important thing. Obviously, you want to do the hard work. So you know what you're doing. You have the chops, you have the talent, but you have to be open to spontaneity and new experience. In my life, certainly that's the way it's been almost right from the beginning. Even finding jobs as a psychologist, things just kind of happened to me. I've never I'm not a big planner. Obviously, we want to be organized. I'm not a flake, but there's a limit how much you can plan things. And I think you're 100% right. Some great stuff. It's like romance, like meeting my wife. I didn't plan to meet her. Having children. Right. I don't know how they're going to turn out. You kind of have to go with the flow to some extent.
And there's no lies there, man.
In creative work, as in life, it's this balance between having goals and structure, and also being receptive to what the universe is giving you. Right? I think right, and you can't do it at either extreme. And sometimes you're working more in the mode of, okay, I gotta write this outline. I gotta figure this plot point out. I gotta build this skeleton. And sometimes you're more in that receptive phase where you're sort of letting things flow through you. But there is no sure way to choke off your creativity than to say, I'm going to be creative now. Like that's just not, it's just not a thing. It happens in a state of relaxation. It happens in a state, and for me, and I would bet for you, Dad, also, almost when you're doing something else, your mind is elsewhere, right? And it's not quite so locked up. So that's why people have good ideas in the shower or whatever. Like when I'm exercising, when I'm walking, if I feel like I'm sort of like starting to sort of like run into problems, I stop what I'm doing, get up, and I walk away from the computer.
Well,
there's nothing better for sort of like relaxing the channels again.
I think it might have been Stephen King. Like we talk about the Chinese finger puzzles, those straw finger. The harder you pull, the tighter it gets. You have to kind of relax it. We talk about left brain and right brain stuff. That's a cliche now. The guy who invented the concept, late Robert Ornstein, who was a neuropsychologist at Stanford, he regrets it because it's been simplified and vulgarized. The truth is, it's not an either or thing. You have two hemispheres, right and left. For right-handed people, generally the left is dominant. For lefties like Jesse and myself, we never know until we take an EEG. But there's a little bunch of nerves in between those hemispheres called the corpus callosum, and that's the freeway that transmits messages across, and that's what you need. And to me, writing a novel is the perfect job, because think about it. On the one hand, you need what people traditionally think of as just organized stuff, left brain stuff, where you have grammar, you have spelling, you have structure, you have logic, plots that hold together. And then there's the crazy stuff where you're making up people and you're fantasizing. So it's a fantastic job because it engages your whole brain constantly, back and forth.
Wow.
And Jesse's 100% right. You need to be in a receptive, relaxed state to be able to free your brain up to do that kind of stuff. So it's a great job.
It's interesting. It's interesting because if I have a block in creativity, right? It used to be, to your point, Jesse, I would go harder. I'm like, no, I need to sit here and I need to figure it out. And then I just get frustrated and then I don't pick it back up for a week. What I started to really rely on is just be present in the moments that I'm not creating, whether it's in the gym. So many of my ideas come from in between sets or in the middle of something. It's just like all of a sudden it pops and you're like, what the heck? Like, to a point where this show was created in a moment that I was driving down the interstate in 2021. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. I wasn't even thinking about this, but it was in a moment of relaxation, thinking about something else, really just driving down the road. And then all of a sudden I created the show and we have built to a certain point, and now we are here. But even to now, if I get to a point where I get to frustration, I'm like, I'm going to go play with my kids. Like, I'm going to go hang out with them. And that kind of centers me because they have such a curiosity and such a playful nature, and anything is possible. Like, if I could just have the confidence of my 6, 8, and 11-year-old, like, wow, what could I truly do? So I really do believe in not like the Chinese puzzle, not forcing it, because everything gets tighter and constricted. You have to have a point of relaxation
100%.
to where you can remove the resistance and then move forward. So I love hearing things like this.
Well, that's the basis of hypnosis. When I was working at a children's hospital, I worked with cancer patients for about a decade, and we were exploring different ways of relieving pain, and hypnosis was one of them. So I learned how to do it, and I learned about it. All hypnosis is strong relaxation and focused concentration. And they have done studies where they would go in and hypnotize kids in a classroom, and their learning actually picks up because they're relaxed. But on the other hand, you have to be able to do the hard work, which when you relax, you could do something with it. Others just sitting around smoking weed and nothing happens, So there's relaxation, but 100%, you have to be receptive to it. And you talk about the word confidence, and I think after writing a bunch of books, both of us know that if we get into a fix, we can get out of it. So we don't worry too much about it.
Absolutely. Jesse, I believe you were going to say something as well.
Well, I was going to say to that point about, how you access that side of yourself, and become receptive. I think, for me and for my dad as well, we have a lot of outside interests and hobbies. So we both play music. My dad paints. I cook. I'm also like a big gym rat, and it's all stuff that is nonverbal. And I think that that's actually really important, but particularly with things like music or cooking or painting. It's still creative. Like, you're still in a flow state a lot of the time. And I would argue, I don't know how you feel about this, Shawn, but like, even in the gym, there is a flow state going on there. Like, if you're like very focused, I power lift, and you really have to concentrate on what you're doing so you don't get killed or crushed. So, but it's nonverbal, right? You're in your body, right? Or you're in your hands if you're playing music, or in your ears. And it just sort of like takes the pressure off the verbal higher parts of your brain that are constantly sort of spewing out words. For my dad and I think for me, our brains are very busy places. Like, there's a lot of like, you're noticing things, you're remembering things. I think again, I won't speak for my dad, but I would guess it's the same thing. Like, you live in a constant state of like recalling and imagining and experiencing, and it's like this constant fire hose of words and images. So it can be overwhelming at times. And so I think that like things that enable you to temporarily step outside that stream can be very, very healthy and helpful.
It's true. I mean, there's a neurological aspect to it, which I learned about, because two of the things that I like to do for fun are painting, which is actually what I'm best at, is painting, and playing classical guitar. And I noticed that after a few hours of writing fiction, I can play guitar, but I really had trouble painting. So I asked this guy, Antonio Damasio, who's one of the world's greatest neuroscientists, like, he studies the nature of consciousness, and he's Italian. And I said, Antonio, why do I have trouble painting after I'm writing? And he thought about it. He said, John, when you are writing, you're painting pictures with words. You are probably exhausting the same neurons that go toward painting pictures. And it makes total sense.
Wow.
Music's a different part of the brain, so you can do it. And I thought that was a great answer. I had never thought of it. So, things get fatigue. Neural cells empty out. They need refurbishing. You need rest. You need minimal stress,
sure. And I want to say, I've never tried to describe this to anybody before, and again, I don't know what my father's experience. When I'm looking at the screen, right? On a computer, I'm looking at the page. I'm seeing the words, but there's a completely separate part of my brain that is playing of a very detailed visual image of what I am writing. It's like you're seeing but not seeing at the same time. Your brain is just going in and out of the words and the image and the words and the image, and they sort of this is really interesting because I've never tried to encapsulate what this experience is like. It's almost like it's a form of self hypnosis, and everything sort of fades away. Time fades away. It's a flow state, but insofar as the visual component of this is really, really, really strong for me. Like, I think for me as a writer, being able to, and I was a theater director. So being able to picture my character, move them around in space. Like I want to know how close is he to the door? So if he's this close to the door, what's the perspective on the room? What does the light look like from that angle? If he walks further in, how does the sound change? All of these things you really want to embody and experiencing and experience it as you're writing about it. And the words themselves are almost secondary. They're where you deposit these images.
It's really true. I mean, that describes my experience almost exactly.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
You're in an altered state of consciousness. One thing about
it's amazing.
Hypnoidal states, hypnosis-like states, you generally experience distortion of time. Generally, it's constriction of time where you look up and 2 hours have passed. That's true of writing. I mean, I will write for 2 hours and it seems to have been 20 minutes and I look at the clock and it's been 2 hours and it's crazy. They say time goes quickly when you're having fun. And I think it's an element when you're engaged and you're focused, but it is tiring. It's tiring. It doesn't, 2 hours of writing feels like 8 hours of another job, at least to me. I'm tired after 2-3 hours,
I bet, I think you guys are touching on what really makes you guys successful authors. Truly, because you can have an idea and think about an idea and try to get it on paper or try to create something different in life. But if you can't see it, it's much harder. It's not as effective.
The thing that I've noticed about those of us who are long-standing writers, I've been doing this for 45 years. Stephen King, Dean Koontz, even Jesse's a young guy, been doing it for 20 years. Those of us who keep doing it are professionals. We attack it professionally. The movies always portray the writer as living some glamorous life, and he's got his feet up, and he's just thinking about stuff and having a martini, and there's some good-looking chick is doing this. There can be an element of that to fame. I mean, some people like it, but those of us who take it seriously, it's a job. It is a great job, but it is a job, and it means you show up on time and you do your job. And that's, I think,
the other way writers are portrayed as this a complete disaster, like where they haven't showered in a week and they don't know how much money's in their bank account and So either one is a romantic and not very realistic portrayal of what writing life is like. Writing life is about, so funny, a friend of a son's friend who's 18 or 20 or something. And really sort of wants to be in the creative world. Texted me recently. He's like, "Can I shadow you for a day?" And I said to him, my dad is laughing because he knows how absurd that would. So I said to him, do you want to sit in my office and watch me as I type? Like that's not going to be very helpful.
Yeah.
So we went to lunch and I walked him through sort of the mechanics of the book industry, and I walked him through the mechanics of how a book goes from, what the various stages are, from idea to, development to outline. You can chunk these things into discrete tasks, but it's artificial. It's an artificial framework that you're imposing upon it to be able to explain it to other people. Really, it's just sitting down in a chair day after day and like letting your brain do what it's supposed to do, and then going back and fixing the mistakes and polishing it. There's nothing romantic or particularly interesting. I once had an idea. I was like, maybe I should rent a storefront, like a commercial storefront, and I would just sit in the window and write all day long, and see, right? Because it's such an absurd. Everybody's laughing because it's such an absurd thing, but people. I think people who don't do it, they just don't understand what the act involves day to day. It's an internal, repetitive.
Yeah, the
act.
pleasure.
All the action is taking place up here and on the page.
The pleasure isn't typing.
It's interesting.
It's what's going on in your brain and what you produce. It's just, I found a big difference when people would come up to me and say, "I want to be a writer." That wasn't going to happen because you're really getting caught up in the persona. Which is a lot of BS.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says, "I love to write," or even I hate to write, but I'm driven to do it, and they concentrate on the activity, there's a little more hope there. But and the other thing is, I would have kids come up and say, "How do I publicize my book?" I go, "Have you written the book yet?" No. And you're thinking about, because they're so caught up in influencing in the internet and a lot of BS. You got to produce something. Then we'll talk about publicizing it. And the other thing is, people, I have an idea. I said, well, to be vulgar, ideas are like assholes. Everyone's got one. And, transform your idea into a book is a big process.
I can speak to this because, I've self-published a book, but then I just recently signed my first contract with a publisher.
Congrats.
Hey, awesome. For my book that I have to have the manuscript done by December. But I look at this and this is very interesting to me because you talk about flow state, you talk about all these different things and all these different experiences I'm going through real time. And you guys have literally unknowingly of giving me really good tips on how to get in flow state, how to see the situations in my life that I'm really trying to bring to the reader in the blueprint of determination. And what it really means, what it really looks like.
Exactly.
Right. And so that's really helpful. I want to touch on one thing because Jesse, you mentioned something, and then I want to get to Coyote Hills.
Okay.
You mentioned how writers are portrayed in, films and a whole bunch of different things, or just how the public perception is of a writer, right? Just sitting there struggling, messy hair, not, about to get evicted from the apartment. I look back at the Bradley Cooper movie, Limitless. That's how writers are portrayed in most films, right? Until they're inspired and they're this massive intellectual. But I think that's is a poor way to depict authors and professional writers. But you just triggered that thought, and I wanted to bring that to the conversation because I don't know. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't, but Jesse has, I'm sure.
Yeah. Check it out, Doc.
I think,
Rinse takes your laundry and hand delivers it to your door, expertly cleaned and folded. So you could take the time once spent folding and sorting and waiting to finally pursue a whole new version of you. Like Tea Time You. Or this Tea Time You. Or even this Tea Time You.
So did you hear about Dave?
Or even Tea Time You.
So update on Dave.
It's up to you. We'll take the laundry. Rinse. It's time to be great.
It's not just writers who get this treatment in film, right? Right, film or books, right? They need to make something exciting and external. That's the job of a film, right? They need to make it external and exciting. So a lot of stuff gets you're turning the contrast way up on life, right? To an unrealistic point. And that can serve a dramatic purpose for sure. I think, and maybe I'm just unusual in this respect. For me, I often want to know what things are like in the normal moments for somebody. Like we've talked to a lot of law enforcement because we write a crime series. We talk to a lot of law enforcement over the years, right? And most of law enforcement it's paperwork. It's not shootouts and stuff like. Now you can't write a 400-page novel and 10-book series about paperwork, but understanding the reality of what somebody actually does day to day is so helpful I think for creating characters who have a full life and are not these cartoons. I think we aim always to think character first. The person and the personality comes first, and that's where the story emerges from. You can tweak the contrast, right? You turn it up when you put a real person in an extreme scenario. But what you don't want is a caricature or a cartoon. That's not satisfying to anybody.
So Doc, you're talking about the frameworks of a house, the foundation, and the character, right? People remember the characters, but you can't have a character until you have a great framework. So let's talk about this as it relates to Coyote Hills.
Well, that's what we spend most of our time discussing. Yeah. We have Jesse lives in a different city, so we do a lot of, once in a while I fly up there, he flies down here, and we talk. A lot of it's over the phone. We have these conferences, and we're trying to figure out this labyrinthine plot. The characters kind of work themselves out because he's a talented guy, so he knows how to play in food.
So this book in particular is the 6th book in a series. And at this point, our protagonist, whose name is Clay Edison, he's pretty well developed. Like he's well developed as a person. His backstory is well developed. His family life is well developed, and we've been following him sort of in real time as he gets older, gets married, starts to have kids. And against that background is sort of his professional life. So he starts the series as an Alameda County sheriff, specifically working in the coroner's office. So Shawn, you were telling us off camera that you're from Concord, California. I live up in Berkeley, California. So you are definitely familiar with the territory. And,
absolutely.
So one of the things we really wanted to do with this series, because I think is a really interesting geography, and there's like lots of different pockets around here, was take each book and sort of move the camera around to different locations in the Bay, particularly the East Bay. So it really doesn't focus. People think of the Bay Area as San Francisco. That's not my experience. My experience is the East Bay. So the books are set in Berkeley, they're set in Oakland, they're set in Fremont, they're set in San Leandro. All of these places that don't get a lot of exposure in treatment in fiction or film, but are really, really, really interesting. And over the course of that series, he transitions out of being a law enforcement officer because he gets himself into a certain amount of trouble. By the time we catch up with him in this book, in Coyote Hills, he's established himself as a private investigator who has a very sort of interesting and collaborative relationship with another private investigator who lives down in Santa Cruz. And this book opens with her bringing him a case that she can't handle. She sort of punts to him.
And they're a great dyad. They're a great couple.
They're super fun.
She's 5 feet tall.
Yeah.
She's wisecracking. But just to go back a little bit, we had talked about being receptive to change and shifting gears. The genesis of this series came from the fact I had been thinking for a long time about what I was used to in Southern California, LA County, coroners, investigators, CIs, because I thought no one's written a book about a CI, and they're the first people on the scene. In the movies, they showed the pathologist showing up. Pathologists almost never show up to a scene unless there's a celebrity and they want to get on TV or something. These CIs, they're ex-cops, they're social workers, they're nurses, and they say, the cops get the case, but the coroner has the body, so the cops can't touch the body till these CIs come. They empty the pockets, they inform the family, and no one's had done a book about them. So I was thinking my LA thing And I was talking to Jess. I said, wouldn't it be cool to do a series based in CI? Great. But we decided to put it up north in California because I already had a series in Southern California and Jesse's up northern California. We want to cover that part of the state. Well, what did we discover? That up in Alameda County, up in Northern California, totally different. The coroners, investigators there are sheriffs. They're cops. So we had to switch gears and change everything and go with that. And then we've evolved Clay. He did several books as a CI. He got into trouble and he's now working for himself. So it's the ability to, to be flexible and change things. When you talk about these crime novels, Agatha Christie's, she's a huge success. But what Agatha Christie did, she created a great puzzle. But her characters did not evolve. Poirot on the first book was Poirot on the 20th book. Miss Marple was Miss Marple. That was not her genre. When my wife and I got into crime fiction, we decided we wanted to be part of something different. We want to write real characters who change over time. And that's what we do. It's a novel like any other novel based on character, but the catalyst is a crime. The crime is what gets people bumping into each other and that's what we do. And that's what we do in Coyote Hills. And as Jesse mentioned, it's all about the setting, the physical setting being a character. And, Jesse's able to create these tremendous, vivid senses of place up in Northern California. And it's an area that has not been covered extensively. So, and it's so varied. Berkeley's really different from Fremont or from other places. So it's limitless. So Coyote Hills, cool. Coyote Hills is an exciting book. It is so full of twists and turns and surprises, literally to the last page. It really is. Wow. You want to be about surprise. When I read a book, it doesn't matter if it's a crime novel or a straight novel. I want to be surprised. I want to have a reason to turn the page. It's all about creating surprise. And that's
what I love is when I'm watching a movie, let's say, I want my brain to be twisted and turned and go back and forth of what I think is actually going on. And it is the same thing I like to happen when I read a book, because then I'm able to see it on the movie screen in my mind. Right. So I think it's super important and to relate to the characters must evolve. Mm-hmm. If they don't, how can it be relatable? Exactly. People grow. People have different versions of themselves. Exactly. Me now is nowhere near the same as me in 2007 or even 2023, guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It never stops.
Why shouldn't a character in a book evolve?
Right. But with a surprise and with a plot twist, you have to play fair, in my opinion. It has to make sense. And that's a real challenge. It's really hard to create surprises and twists that you've been fair. You've given the same facts to the readers. You're not pulling something out of a hat. It's a very tough and wonderful job. That's all I can say.
You guys are firing me up. I can't wait to read this thing.
Oh, cool. It's a great book. It's a great book.
Wow.
We're really happy with it.
It's really, one thing, and you'll appreciate this being an area you have, one thing that this book really focuses on. So again, like we said, like the geography and the sort of like the different communities here intersecting is really, really interesting to me because you have such a varied population and such a varied geography.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
This book is a lot about the water. It's a lot about the bay itself. The bay itself is a really important character. And I think it's so interesting because I've lived here now for 13 years. My wife grew up here. We've lived here now for 13 years. And something we talk about in the book is like, even if you live here, I'm very close to the water. If I drive like 2 miles that way, I hit the bay. But it's very different here than it is in Southern California, where there's like a strong beach culture. Like a lot of times people in the Bay Area spend their time trying to get around the water. It's like a pain in the ass. Like it's a thing that gets in the way when you're trying to get someplace else. Which is not to say that people don't like surf and boat and all that. They do. but we don't, I think, have the same sense of like, we're like a, like an ocean going people. My kids, we go to the beach when I go to visit my parents in Southern California. So to start to think about what does it mean that we have this whole area built around this hugely important natural feature? Like, what does it hide? Like, what is it? Like, what kind of mysteries are attached to the coast? So that was a theme we were really interested in exploring.
That's so interesting. And you're right. I mean, being from that area, it's like, how do I get around this? I don't want to be at the beach. Right. It's super cold.
It's cold.
It's always drizzling.
Yeah.
Not only cold in the city, but it's just it's the Pacific Ocean. It's freaking cold, man.
It's
the
very
rocks. It's a rock surface, right?
Yeah.
And out here in Florida, you go to the beach and it's like beautiful sand, and I still don't like going. I still want to get around it because it's always a process. But what I really like is you're taking an object such as the bay and making it its own character that just brings so much more depth to the book.
Yeah, it's super fun. And we got to explore a lot of settings that I think we wouldn't necessarily have explored. And to think about once you sort of set that condition up, where I'm not going to call it a constraint, but like you set that condition up of like, okay, we're really going to be engaging with the water here. It limits your set of possibilities, but what it does is forces you to go very deep on those possibilities. Like writing, all creative work is about choices, right? Because you come to the page, it's blank. There's literally an infinite number of choices you can make. So the question is, how do you make, what choices do you make? What order do you put those in? And how do you structure them in such a way that it creates, as my dad said, this sense of mystery, but also a sense of fairness? You want, by the time you get to then, you want it to feel inevitable and not cheap. Like we cheated you. It's not like that Scooby-Doo moment where the mask gets ripped off and it's grandma, right? Like that, anybody can do that, right? Like that's not hard to do. But to get to that point where you're at the end and you're like, oh my God, and you look back like that Kaiser Soze moment, everything sort of clicks into place. That is the challenge and the pleasure of constructing a book like this.
It's all about preparation.
Yeah.
It takes me as long to plot a book, to plan it, as it does to write it. It's about 50-50. It's about a year-long process. Half of that is plotting. And you talked before about blocking. I've never experienced writer's block, ever. And I think the reason is I'm prepared when I sit down. Of course, I'm going to change things. I may think I know what I'm going to do, but I have the basic structure. And I keep coming back to the construction, the building of a house as a metaphor, because unless you have that foundation, unless you have that structure, it's going to collapse. It's going to be a house of cards. So it's all about preparation to me, and learning to plot. And, for me, I can't speak for me, it evolves. I start thinking about stuff. I start making notes. It's general. Then I start making a general outline. Then I do a chapter by chapter. By the time I sit down, I kind of know what I'm doing, or at least I've deluded myself that I know.
You have
I
idea,
never have experience
right.
block. There was a famous writer, Robert Parker. He wrote the Spencer series. Is from slightly previous generation. And I loved Bob. He was like a gruff Boston guy. When Jesse was in college, he'd jog past Bob's house and his light would be on at midnight. So one time we were at this artsy fartsy arts festival, and someone says, "Mr. Parker, what inspires you to write?" He says, "I have a contract." So that was one. And the other one was, "What do you do about writer's block?" He says, "When you call a plumber, does he say, 'I can't come because I have plumber's block'?" It's a job. Be a professional. Do your preparation. Know what you're doing. And I can't speak for anybody else, but I don't block because I'm prepared. I don't start and just say, I think it's the same way. You don't start so we know. Of course, it's going to change. It's going to change. You're going to surprise yourself.
It's that tightrope between, structure and receptivity that we were talking about. You're always walking that line.
Yeah. I love this aspect of the conversation. Not that I didn't like the other aspect, but this is very interesting to me. I loved it all. I love it all. Trust me. because there's a lot of people that ask me, how do you do so many shows?
Yeah.
Do you ever run anything out of anything to talk about? Are you actually interested in everybody you interview? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
To the latter, right? But I never get tired of talking to anybody. I never run out of ideas because guess what? Just like Doc said, this is my job. Yeah. This is what I love to do this. So I don't get blockage on interviews because I'm generally aware of the outline and the structure, the framework of the conversation I want to have, which as you guys can tell is an open conversation. It's the most effective. There's no rapid fire of weird questions. It's just, hey, let's talk about this. And that allows me to stay free and not in that Chinese puzzle, the finger puzzle within the interview. So there's two different types going on here, right? There's people that are doing because they think it's cool and something that, hey, it would be neat if I did this because everybody's doing it. And there's those people, and trust me, there's a lot of in between. I'm not pigeonholing it, but then there's the professionals that take this very seriously, that look at the potential storyline, plot it out, outline it, general outline, chapter outline, right? And in my sense, it's look at the guest, look at the past, look what they're doing, what they are doing now, and how can I craft a conversation that is going to bring not just the publicity to the thing, but also engage the listener to take action on the thing and to feel inspired to take what is said and apply it to their own life. How about that, guys?
I agree. And it helps that you clearly like people and you're naturally a gregarious guy. And you enjoy people. I love people too. I'm a very extrovert person. My kids used to have this running joke because we'd go to the airport and I'd end up talking to some stranger and it was Dad made a new friend. Now that helped me as a psychologist because think about it. I'm in practice and every day I'm meeting strangers and they're young strangers. They're kids and teenagers and I have to find a way to engage them and relax them. I didn't find it stressful because I'm really curious. I have a nephew who's a super extrovert. He comes from a family of 11 kids. All the kids and all the parents are these super extroverts. And I said, what's it like when you're going to meet a new person? He goes, I'm really excited because I'm really curious. No social anxiety. It's a blessing to be like that. Not everybody like that.
And I think, Shawn, that, there's a real art and skill to interviewing people. We do, when we do research, one of the most important thing is you can read tons of books. The most important thing is to go out and meet the people who do the thing you're trying to learn about and talk to them. And it's this type of, you're coming in usually with a set of questions, things you don't understand or don't know about, but that's never the most interesting thing you learn. The most interesting thing you learn is always going to be something that you didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And
exactly.
So, like you said, are you really interested in all these kids? Yeah. Like I'm really, I think in part because my job is so static most of the time. I'm sitting in a room. I am fascinated by people who do other stuff, even things that I think to the person who's doing it can feel really boring and banal. I think people are often amazed that I really want to know, like, what do you do all day? One of my favorite books is by Studs Terkel, and it's a book called, I think it's called Working. I read it years ago, and it's just. He goes out. Studs Terkel, was this great writer and radio host
in Chicago.
He died like fairly recently, like 10 years ago, or so he lived to like 300 or whatever. But he went out, and this book is amazing. It's just a series of oral histories or interviews with people who do their jobs. And he talks to CEOs, and he talks to parking valets, and he talks to dentists, and he talks to sanitation workers. And so, what do you do all day? And they start to talk about it. And it's completely fascinating because especially when someone cares about what they do, like their level of interest in and they don't get to, and very few people actually get to share that with the world. And I think you're doing both yourself and the world a favor by accessing that. So, I mean, you obviously have to be, as my dad said, a gregarious person, and
open to it. One of the famous dad made a new friend stories. Kids were younger. We were going to Santa Fe, waiting in the airport. It was jammed up. And this Guy next to me just started talking to me. Well, it turns out he was the guy who repaired oil rigs in Oklahoma.
Wow.
This was really interesting to me. I had no clue about this, and no one had ever asked him what he did. So I just kind of listened and learned a lot about fixing oil rigs. And, if I'm going to be a novelist, I'm going to write about all kinds of people. I might work that into my book. Who knows?
Yep.
The more you know about people, the better writer you are. You could be a poet like Emily Dickinson and be isolated. Yep. But if you're going to be a really good novelist, you have to be engaged with the world, I think. You have to, the more you know, the better writer you are.
It's so funny. My wife always makes fun of me. Like, she always says to the kids, "Well, there's Dad again. Talk to one of the neighbors." I've never seen them before, but he probably knows exactly what house they live in. He probably knows exactly what car they drive. Yeah. But like, if I'm running the neighborhood, if I'm running one day and I, decide to stop on an interval run, I see somebody, "Hey, what's going on, man? What's your name?" Like, "Hey, how you doing, man? Come watch my car next. I'm over there on that street." And the next time you see them, they say something back, and then you start to understand people. But I think the beautiful part about life is truly people, right? And and truly the interaction and understanding other people's walks of life, perspectives, and we all know that's the worst thing we have going on right now in our society is we think if someone's different or thinks someone different than us or votes differently than us or looks differently than us, has different sexual preferences than us, then, hey, they must be a bad person. And that's not necessary. I mean, I don't even want to say not necessarily. That is not fact.
It's crazy. It's a crazy way to look. But it's a blessing, Shawn, to be extroverted and friendly and to generally like people. I was born that way. And it's just the way I am. And if I'm at a restaurant and a server, a waiter or waitress comes over and they go, "How are you today?" I go, "Fine. How are you?" I'm not bullshitting them. I'm not patronizing them. They're people too. I don't want them to feel like they're just slaves coming. Everybody needs to feel important for what they do. I'll give you a good example. There was a famous rabbi named Moshe Feinstein, who was the head of a yeshiva in New York. He was a gentle, wonderful man, and he was one of the top Judaic scholars of his day. Now, he would get driven around and he'd go across the turnpike, and you had a choice of doing the easy pass or going to a person in a booth. And he told his students, you always go to the person because those people need to feel important. Never use easy pass.
That's a great point.
That stuck with me.
That's a great point.
I'm not trying to make like I'm some saint.
That's why he was late to every single meeting, by the way. He was always late.
He was probably late all the time. But the point is that it's just, he was thinking about the human element, and it's not a matter of being soppy or anything. And
no,
if you're going to be a psychologist like I was, you should like people, don't you think?
I would think so.
Not all writers are friendly. Some are misanthropic. No. Some of them, you would have a devil of a time interviewing them, but that's not us. So
I've had an absolute great run of authors that I've had on my show. Every one of them has been engaging. Every one of them has been such an interesting human being. And I just love seeing how their mind works, right? Because it's just, to me, it's interesting. Like, hey, it's fun to see how other people think differently than me. But look, guys, I know we're running out of time, but I'm so grateful that you guys were willing to come on and share a little bit about your history and in the new book, Coyote Hills, coming out, and that's October 25th, guys. So make sure you pick it up. I'm specifically interested to read this book because I always like things that keep my heart rate going. And it seems as though this is going to be one of those novels, and you guys are amazing, amazing guys. I would love to continue to be in contact with you guys. And I definitely take California trips to record. So
good.
Well,
do me a favor, Shawn. Read it and let us know what you think. I'd really want to know the feedback. See
1,000%.
If we succeeded in what we set out to do. I think we did. I'm feeling good about it. But
I feel very good about it. And I think we're very grateful also for the opportunity to come on and talk about the book and talk about our process. Like I said before, a lot of it is just sitting in a room. So this is a very this is like a relief. It's fun to get together with other people, even if it's virtual, with people to talk about this stuff, because it's what we do all day. And just like, I think we're interested in other people. I think other people are interested in what we do. And it's great to be able to try and share and encapsulate that for a wider audience. And we're grateful to you. This was awesome. This was so much fun. And you did an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you. You guys did too.
One thing you guys have in common, he deadlifts 600 pounds. You could probably do that kind of stuff too. I just, it's not me.
No.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I'm not freakishly strong. Hey, so I figured out what's going on here, okay? I figured out why all the books are so successful, why you're so chiseled, Jeremy, and can lift 600 pounds. Brother, you're hypnotized. Your whole life, he's hypnotized you. Okay?
I've been hypnotized.
That guy's that's like modern day warfare. This son of a gun has hypnotized everybody in his life. You know what? If I go on this run where I just blow up and everything's working, I'm going to go back to what changed in your life, Shawn? Well, I had this interview with the Kellermans, and I'm pretty sure Dr. Jonathan hypnotized me during the damn conversation.
I don't do it anymore. No, but he's just one of those guys. He's always been freakishly strong. My dad was the same way. Skips a generation. So I'm strong, but not like that. Not like that.
I love it, guys. Thank you again so much. You guys have been a great pleasure. And for the audience, in all seriousness, guys, that you're listening and watching, I don't have people on my show that I don't believe in, and I don't promote things that I don't feel create massive amounts of value. So, hey, check out Coyote Hills everywhere, October 25th. Read the book and let me know what you think. And until next time, everybody, stay determined.
Next up is a little song from CarMax about selling a car your way.
You want to sell those wheels, you want to get a CarMax instant offer.
So fast.
Want to take a sec to think about it.
Or like a month.
Want to keep tabs on that instant offer.
With Offer Watch.
Want to have CarMax pick it up from your driveway. Get it done today. You want to do
So, want to drive? CarMax. Pickup not available everywhere. Restrictions and fee may apply.